All right.
How's your guys' week though?
Just trying to make it, man. Just so much stuff to do. So much.
That's fair. Yeah, sometimes that seems to be my week. Just work for the weekend.
Right. Like I don't do work during. I do work during the week for my 9 to 5, and I try to, fit in my social media ministries and all that stuff. And the weekend is supposed to be strictly for my ministries, but like work, man, they're killing me at work, man. I just got more and more stuff to do. Like it's ridiculous. But,
Yeah, that's fair.
yeah, we'll see what happens though. I pray the stock market investing, and I'm invested in Bitcoin and crypto and Ethereum now. So hopefully all that pan out well.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying that's where it's at right now. So hopefully that does pay off.
Yeah, man. Yeah, just been investing my money. I don't got to pay off my student loans or IRS anymore, so I'm happy. Just been investing everything. Yeah. Yeah, man. We'll talk about that some other time though. But like with this, man, I'm so excited for this study, man. Like honestly, I've been studying it too much. Like I haven't been studying anymore because I've been studying it way too much. And like,
yeah,
my notes are all over the place, like just random everywhere. Like, so I'm just probably not even gonna look at my notes. Really.
Yeah, it's good to have like a little bit of time, but if you give yourself too much time, sometimes it's just like everywhere.
Right.
So you need. That's what Picasso did with his paintings. Like after they went to the museum, he would like go in to like make corrections or add to it, and they had to like stop him from touching his own paintings in the museum. So sometimes you just let it be.
Right. All right. Well, y'all ready to get started?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm gonna start with prayer, man, because we don't ever really pray at the beginning. But I know we.
Yeah.
I feel like I need it for this text.
We need to. You need to start doing that.
Right. So I'll lead it off. Father, thank you so much for everything you're doing in our lives, and just for the time that you've given us to live in right now, Father. Your will's perfect, your plans are perfect, Father, and we don't understand that, but we'll understand it better by and by, like you promised in your word. So, Father, I pray in in your name that you please reveal what you want to be revealed through this text, Father. Bless our thoughts, bless our outlines, bless our words that we speak, and just allow us to fellowship and just bask in your glory and what this text is trying to convey to us, Father. Help us to all grow in our faith, mature in our faith, and become the creatures you want us to be, so we can apply all the lessons and just nourish on all the fruit you want us to receive when it comes to this text, Father. I'm excited to see what we learn from this passage and in the passage to come, if it's your will, Father. So thank you for today, for the verses we're about to cover, and just the amazing knowledge that we'll all receive, Father. And in Jesus' name I pray, man. All right.
Amen.
Yeah, man. So I don't know if you guys remember those questions I sent you. I think I sent you 2, but I know I sent you 1 for sure.
Look at that.
I asked you guys to tell me.
I think you sent in the group.
Yeah, I think I texted just to you and Maya. I asked, tell me about a time in your life where you did not insist on your own way and you saw God at work. Yeah, remember that?
Oh, yeah. That's right.
And I think go ahead.
I saw God at work, yeah.
Then my other question was, I don't know if I asked this, but what does seeketh not her own mean? But let's read the verses before we answer any of those. Yeah. All right, so Maya, you want to read verses 4 through 8?
Sure.
Thank you.
Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. For where there are prophecies, will they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away.
All right, and so we're focusing on verse 5. The King James Version reads, doth not behave itself unseemly, seeketh not her own, is not easily provoked, and thinketh no evil. And we're focusing on today, seeketh not her own. So love does not insist on its own way. So it's a lot of different versions say different things for that part.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so yeah.
Which verse say love does not seeketh their own? So what translation and what verse does that translate?
Oh, that's the King James Version.
And which verse is that for?
Verse 5, doth not behave itself unseemly, and then the second part is seeketh not her own.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Huh. That's an interesting translation. I like that.
Yeah, what's yours?
It is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs.
Okay, yeah, so self-seeking. So other versions said it's not selfish. I think that's what Maya said.
Yeah.
Does not demand it. Huh?
Mine's the same as Justine's. It says not.
Yeah, she has the same as mine.
Okay, yeah, but other version says does not insist on its own way, does not demand its own way, does not seek its own way, is not selfish. So just all that stuff tie in together, which was the question I wanted to ask you guys is what does seeketh not her own mean? And I think all the versions kind of hit it. And then also the other question that ties in with that is what does it mean to insist on something, which I think brings out all that.
I know in my relationship, like verse 5 really speaks to me because it talks about it's not self-seeking and it keeps no record of wrongs. Because unfortunately, that is exactly what I do. Like, I'm losing an argument, I will pull in, like, well, you did this on the 12th of June, such and such. And there's like no reason for me to do that, except like I want to win an argument or something, or just to show I'm not as bad. Yeah. But that just makes her more upset, which makes me upset. And I like how, what was that Martin Luther King Jr.'s quote? You can't defeat darkness or you can't defeat hate with more hate, right? Yeah. Like only light or love can defeat hate. Yeah. I'm sorry. But it's true. Like if you try to fight fire with fire, if you throw in more fire, it's just going to create a bigger fire and everything's going to get worse. I think that's what happens when we're too self-seeking. When we try to serve others, then suddenly our intentions they're right with God. Maybe it doesn't always end the way you want it to. Like maybe good intentions come out with bad consequences, but it definitely defeats that cycle of hate. Like I feel like you're more blessed, you're more prosperous, you're more in tune with the character that God has you for if you are trying to serve others. Like a lot of people think humbling yourself is letting people step over you. No, that's not the case. Humbling yourself is putting someone else first. It's just letting others go. And I think that is less toxic than anything else. Like going back to my relationship, like I find that if she's upset with something, if I'm just there to comfort her, if I'm focusing on her and not on me, it goes much better. Right. Like I'm able to calm her down. We're able to discuss it more civilly, and it just becomes less emotional overall. So I definitely like these verses just because that's what love is. Love isn't for in all the translations of love in Greek or Hebrew, like it talks about an outward force towards someone or somebody, or an attachment to something. It's not necessarily just concentrated on one person. Love, it has to affect multiple people. It's not just one person.
Right. Yeah, that's why the Greek translation is so powerful. Like I wasn't gonna say this part, but I was gonna like save this for like other videos I do. But it ties in, and yeah, let me get to it first. I gotta find it on one of my outlines. But basically, it just talks about like the different types of love in Greek. So you got eros, you got phileo, agape, and storge. I never really hear too much about storge that much.
This one that much, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so those are like the 4 different types of love. So storge just means like I love burgers. It also means like love for family, love for parents and children, which is interesting. Phileo, we already know that's brotherly love. So, you know, loving a friend dearly and stuff.
After.
Yeah, yeah. And then eros, romantic love. And then agape, we know that's unconditional love. That's God's love for us and our love for one another. It should be like for believers. And this love is greater than all of them. And this is what Paul's talking about. Like, you know, we should have this agape love for one another. And for, yeah, man, like the Corinthians needed this message, man. Because, like, when it came to them, they prioritized the wrong things. And we do that too in today's life. Like, in this text right here, folks hones in on that. Like, love seeketh not her own. What we're focusing on today. It does not insist on its own way. Like, on so many levels, we do this. And I'm like, I'm gonna wait to get to it. But I really want to talk about agape love, and I want to talk about what does it mean to demand your own way and insist on your own way, and just any other version like that. Just when it comes to what we're focusing in on. But you know, agape love is self-giving love. It's a love that gives without demanding repayment. You know, sacrificial love, love that loves even when it's rejected. Like this is a love literally that's talking about. It's talked all about through this text. Like it bears all things, believes all things, hopeth all things, endureth all things. Like this kind of love isn't a love that's like expecting something in return. You know, it's just a love that keeps on giving. You know, this no matter what happens. So, yeah, being a Christian, like a lot of times people think that that's you know, being friendly and being nice, but like it's more than that. You know, like even when your enemies like do something wrong to you, even when people that you don't like do something to you, you're called to love them, even when you're not feeling like doing it. So like that reminds me of that song "More Than a Feeling" by the song Boston, by the by the band Boston. Because like yeah, people think I fell out of love with them, so like I don't love them no more. Like what? Like as Christians, that's not a thing. You love people even when you don't feel like loving them. You go the extra mile. That reminds me again of the Monica song. That's not even one of my notes. The Monica song, I will cross the oceans for you. I will go and bring you the moon. Like I will be your hero, something like that. Like that Monica song's bad. I can't remember what it's called. What's the title of it is? It's on Space Jam though. First Space Jam with Michael Jordan. But yeah, man, like yeah.
Okay. I'll listen back to that. Man, I thought I knew. I feel like I watched Space Jam like 5 times and I don't remember that song.
It came it's called For You I Will by Monica. It came on during the credits. And like at the end kinda of the movie. Like right when they were going to the credits. Yeah, so
okay.
you kind of had to like
Listen.
yeah. You have to kind of like watch it a little bit to like catch on to it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, man. But yeah, going back to what I was trying to go at, what is insist on your own way, seeking not your own, and all that stuff. So, yeah, what does it mean to insist on something? Like I just described agape love, so God's love for us, which means a lot of stuff. But like, what does it mean to insist on your own way? And like, I'll start it off. I looked up the definition of insist, and man, the synonyms are powerful. Like for just insist. So insist just means to demand. It's you demand that something must go a certain way, and you don't give up at it either. You don't refuse. You don't let up until it goes your way, right? And it doesn't give up the need to be right. And so it forces it even. And like, man, it's just so powerful, man. This is so carnal, but like,
I think need to. It needs to give up the need to be right.
Mm-hmm.
Which one was it?
No, say that again.
Sorry. Was it the need to be right? Could you repeat that? It does or does not need to give up.
So when you insist on something, yeah, it means that you just stand firm on something. You persist that something goes your way, and then you don't give up at it. Just all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so you don't, and then you just you require that it happens your way or the highway, basically, right?
Yeah.
And like, yeah, were you gonna say something?
No.
Okay.
Bye.
Yeah, so from a Christian aspect, that just sounds, oh my gosh, that's just wrong on so many levels. like you demand a life that goes your way, and it doesn't go your way, then oh my gosh, like screw everybody. Like you're not a true Christian. Like, and this is where Paul's going at. You know, the Corinthians are a prime example at this. Like the Corinthians, like we just read almost the whole book of First Corinthians, right? And just at first things I thought about was like when they did communion in like First Corinthians, I think it was 11. They had communion, and when they did communion, some people came drunk, and they came and it was a love feast before communion, but they ate all the food. So when poor people came to get some of the food, you know, there was no food left, and they were drunk. So they didn't look out for their neighbor. So they were selfish. They insisted on their own way. They demanded what they wanted instead of looking out for somebody else and being sacrificial, what we're called to be as believers. Like,
yeah,
it's just so powerful, man. Like, and then that's just one example. Another example is like with Paul, like a good example. You know, he didn't want to receive money from the Corinthian church because he knew that if he got money from them, then the church would judge him and say, just give him another reason, like you're not a true prophet, you know. And he didn't want anybody to stumble. He also didn't want to be associated with false prophets who only got money, who only preached for money, and only gave messages for money. So they would tell people like what they want to hear. And Paul didn't want to be associated with none of that, right? Yeah. So like he denied what he wanted. Like he could have done that. He had the right to do it, but he didn't do it, right? And so and that's just a great example. But there's so many examples in the Bible. Like I think about Moses, like him going to Egypt. He didn't want to go. In fact, he tried to get out of it, but he still went, right? Jonah going to Nineveh. He complained, but did he go? Like he still went, you know? So as a child of God, there's just some things you have to do, like for the Lord, that you don't want to do. There's some people you have to love that you don't want to love. There's some places you want to go that you have to go to that you don't want to go to. But that's God's will. That's the way God works. And Jesus is a prime example of that too. But yeah, man, it's just so much to say. I'll let you guys talk. But
I think that's and I think it's tough for the Corinthians, especially because they live in a city where, and I feel like it's a long time since we said this, but they live in a city where you have to you have a chance to make a living. You have a chance to make something of yourself. And if it's anything like what it's like in a big city nowadays, that's expectation means you have to step on people to climb up the ladder. So I'm sure that's what they had to do as well. So probably the concept of an unconditional love is very foreign to them. Right. I can't imagine how difficult that must be to suddenly do a 180 for something like that, because that just sounds, I don't know. How do you describe love to someone who just does not know love? So I don't know. I can't imagine. I feel like Paul's definitely trying to reach out to them on these topics because they're focused on, from chapter 12, we were really big on the gifts. I bet the Corinthians are big on who has the best gift. They're still focused on carnal stuff, but love, as we talked about, transcends all of that. It's timeless. So it's probably just a difficult for them not to focus. And that's what I like. I know we're not talking about the verses yet because this is verse 8, but he's saying even though the gifts or talking in tongues or prophecy are going to pass, like love is going to endure. He wants them to continue to appreciate the gifts, but realize they are still for physical things. They're only in parts right now. So they have to appreciate love, the eternal thing right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. Like one thing I want to focus in on too is your preference is not a mandate for everyone. So like just bringing this message even further, like insisting on your own way. Like some people think because you're not this because you're not the preference that they like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you're wrong, right? So like because you don't believe what I believe, you're wrong. So like when it comes to like love doesn't insist on its own way, that's literally what it's talking about. It's talking about you make your pleasures and what you want the primary and chief thing above everything. So and you do that at other people's expense and at the expense of God's will. And like you pursue your what you want to pursue and and the way that you want things to be, like it's the main thing. Like if it's not that, then oh well, like you know, so it's not the right way. That's how you think. Like this is so powerful. Like this is why I wanted to do this lesson. I'm talking about love doesn't insist on its own way because like there's a lot of self-centered people in today's culture, and we can be self-centered sometimes.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. And how are you going to reach people if you're self-centered, if you're selfish, right? So we're not called to be like the rest of the world. That's what the rest of the world does. The rest of the world, you know, get up by your own bootstraps, like we talked about last lesson. What my neighbor said, you know, everybody can succeed in life. Just work at it. Like I had to work. Everybody can do it because I did it. You know, like so like just people saying stuff like that, being self-centered and not caring for other people. So demanding things to be your way and not looking out for the benefit of somebody else. And there's so many scripture verses like
and that's a blessing and a curse too, because it's good that God has created so many people and so many different images because we need people with different perspectives to help us out.
Right.
But unfortunately, that could also mean that we're so hooked on what our experience is that, like, we are creatures of habit. Like, we are very traditional. Like, we may think our generation is like a lot more relaxed and loose, and that the older generation is like very hooked on their ways. But once we get old, we're going to be hooked on our ways too.
Right.
And I definitely feel like if the church was more focused on like showing that love or showing that mercy or like trying to accept people instead of focusing in on what's wrong with them or things that we don't agree about them. I mean, not to say we don't stick to our guns and stick to our morals, but sometimes we focus too much on like what's wrong with people instead of how are we similar? How can we love them and things like that?
Yeah. You know, one of the things I was gonna say too is it's just I was going to ask a question. Do you act in love with those whose theology differs from yours, whose opinions differ from yours, who do not agree with us, you know, who has a different theology than us and whose belief system different from ours? Or do you have arguments with family members so much so that you cannot even experience Christmas and Thanksgiving with them? Like, there's some people like that, you know, and that is so crazy. Like, you know, people church hop because the pastor said one thing they don't agree with. So now the pastor's a false prophet and going to hell. Like, you know, like it's just, man, this is so crazy. Like, so many people think because like the church didn't sing my song, you know, like they don't sing the music I like, man, that church ain't of God. Like I heard one example, one preacher gave an example. He said that a lady came up to him in his church, and he's just happy that she came up to him and didn't gossip about it. But she came up to him and said, man, I just feel like our church isn't biblically faithful. He was like, what do you mean? He was really worried. And she said, because we don't stand up during the reading of the scripture. So we're not following God's command. So we're not doing things biblically. He was like, what verse in the Bible are you talking about? She said the exact verse. She said, you was like Nehemiah 8:20 or something, 14, something like that. And she was talking about when Elijah stood up to speak a message. And and the pastor he broke down that verse for her. But like we know for sure, Hannah was on her knees in the synagogue, like praying. Like there's different ways to pray. There's different ways to preach. Jesus sat on the boat. Well, he didn't. I don't think people stood up. Like they were on a mountain. Like you know, you gotta give 10 different examples of that, like to say that that's the way. But anyway, it's not a command, right? But anyways, she had a preference, right? And she made her preference.
But she brought up to him though.
Yeah. But yeah,
because I feel like there's a lot worse ways that could have went down.
Right. yeah, man. So like, and then another guy, he said that he came up to him, that same pastor, and he said that he doesn't think that the pastor's a true child of God and he's a false prophet. He's like, why you think that?
Oh, okay.
And he said, because you tell jokes during the sermon. He said preachers aren't supposed to tell jokes.
It depends. Like, I think I feel like Jesus. I feel like the many prophets actually had a sense of humor.
Right.
We just don't understand the jokes.
Right.
Because, but there's actually a lot of sarcasm and jokes that go on in the Old Testament that you wouldn't know unless you studied it. And it was mostly just to get a point across. But yeah, I could see how some people might not like it, but I like it.
Right. And then, but like to give it, I could break those two down really easy, but I'm not even gonna waste my time with that. But that wasn't our topic. Yeah, my whole point is like, well, love doesn't seek it its own way. Just because you have a preference doesn't make it a mandate for everyone, like I said earlier. And then your way is not the only way that God can use. Like some people think if things aren't done in the way that they want, then it's wrong, And like we got to get out of our box. We got to stop limiting things into our own knowledge, our own experiences, our own reality, and thinking our reality is the only reality. Our way of doing something is the only way that it should be done. Like that's not the way God works. Paul, man, he's using 1 Corinthians 13 to tie in with 1 Corinthians 12 when he said that we're a body of Christ, many parts. So the whole body's different. Everybody does things differently. So just because somebody does something different than you doesn't make their way wrong of doing something, and doesn't make your way wrong of doing something. We're all different. And that's where we all grow and we become humble. Like literally, Jesus said, deny yourself, humble yourself, pray and come to me. Like that's a lot of steps, man. Like you got to deny yourself, deny what you want, deny your own way, deny insisting and demanding things your way, which I'm gonna talk about in a minute. And then humble yourself. Like you don't know everything. You don't have it all figured out. Nobody does. So like so many Christians do that. Like we're real arrogant and prideful about our way of doing things. Like I know you guys. I know y'all picturing people right now that that are like that, and we were even like that at a time. I was. So like, who I think about? I even think about Jesus. Like literally one of my favorite passages in the Bible. We should totally do a Bible study on it. But like this is like one of my favorite stories I've ever heard. Maya's reading a book. I can't remember the title, but it's like the whole Bible story. And it's my favorite book of all time. I read it 3 times. I literally read it 3 times or 4. And I never marked up the book so much. But like, yeah, with that book, man, this guy literally gave a summary of the whole entire Bible. Well, not even the whole entire Bible, just a good. Yeah, man.
Bible. Huh.
You read it before?
No.
Oh, okay.
So I was just reading I was reading the book Maya was holding up.
Yeah, man, that book, man, it's amazing, bro. Like, I never marked up a book so much and highlighted, but like, yeah, it gives like a lot of stories in the Bible that you don't know about. One of the stories he told about was when Jesus was rejected in Nazareth, when he was in the ministry in his first year, when he went back home and he went to a synagogue and he did something to where it made the whole community mad. They were about to throw him off a cliff. And I was like, what? Throw Jesus off a cliff? I was like, I never heard that story in my life. And so I did research on it, and like all you need to know in Luke 4:16, it says this. Like this says the whole thing. He went to Nazareth where he had been brought up, and on the Sabbath day he went into the synagogue as was his custom. So he went to synagogue every day. I mean, not every day. He went to synagogue every Sabbath day, and so that means he went to church every week. And it was a tradition. It was a ritual for him. It's something that he wanted to do, which all Christians should do. So why would Jesus go to synagogue? He wasn't like, just even before he preached and was a rabbi, right? This guy went to synagogue. Why? Like to hear a preacher talk? This is God in the flesh. Like, why would he listen to another pastor? That makes no sense to me. Like, because if you're God, you can preach better than him. You know the word better than he. Like, he'll mess it up. But Jesus didn't insist on his own way. That is so powerful. That's mind-boggling to me. He did not insist. He didn't demand that things go his way. Oh, go ahead.
That is crazy. I never thought about that. You're right, though.
And that's not the only time when he was 12. You know,
because Jesus is like, if anyone has the right to interrupt a sermon, it is Jesus.
Right. But he didn't. He didn't.
Man, that is mind-blowing. Gosh, I never thought about that.
And then in chapter 4, that same verse 16, ended off. The last phrase that said he stood up to read. So this pastor gave him a right to read. Sometimes traveling evangelists and people like that, the hometown pastor of that church would let people read the scripture verse before they preach. So that's what Jesus did. Like, and sometimes they let him even talk. So he actually talked during in that same text. And he said, you know, I'm the Messiah. I'm here, and everybody's going to rejoice and praise. So that's why they about to throw him off a cliff, because he's from Nazareth. Everybody knew him, but that's beside the point. The whole point is like, he didn't speak unless it was his time to speak. He didn't do things unless it was his time to do things, right? So, you know, yeah, man, like, that is so powerful that he was like that, man. And like, yeah, that's how we're called to be. Like, that's not the only way. You know, he's God, right? So when he was there's so many examples to give with him. Like, did y'all have anything before I even keep on going?
I think I'm good. If you want to keep going.
Okay. But yeah, the whole point is, like, what I'm trying to say, I'm not even going to describe Jesus. Like, we know about him. I'll do it later if we get to it. But like, we should never treat people as dumb. We shouldn't act like we're more superior than other people, or people are beneath us, and think that it make them feel inferior. Like, Jesus didn't even do that. Jesus was talking with sinners. He hung out with sinners. That is so powerful to me, because like, you would think he would hang out with religious people and people who had it together, but he hung out with sinners. So that means it's not like he was trying to reform them or trying to change them, but he respected their opinions and was kind to them and patient with them. Like, he thought he could learn something from, not really learn something from them, but you know what I mean? He still like respected and appreciated what they thought, you know, and that's how we should be, you know, like when people differ from us, we should be growing and maturing. So we shouldn't be insisting on our own way and demanding that they do things our way. And that's so powerful too. Because like, as Christians, I used to do it all the time when I was a baby Christian in first aid. I used to insist that people live the way I live. Like, if you're saved, if you want to be saved, you want to live like God wants us to live, you got to do things my way. Like, and that's practicing witchcraft. Like, that's you trying to be God and trying to judge people, telling them how they should do things, when God didn't do that nobody did that with you. You know, God, God, you know, we all are as close. I say that all the time. We are as close to God as we want to be. And so everything's based on your relationship with God. So we all should just let people figure things out with God themselves, kind of, you know what I mean? Just like we had to do, because it's their relationship with God. So everybody's walk's different. Everybody's path's different. And we can't be insisting that everybody follows the path that we follow and do the things we did. And then like, yeah, there's always something to learn from people, man, to grow from and stuff like that. So just being closed-minded, man, it's gonna make you miss out on a lot of things, man. And so many stories in the Bible that tie in with that, man. Like, I don't really know it like that, but his name's like Nabon or something. You ever heard that story of Nabon? The one that he had leprosy, and he was told he was really rich and he had everything. It was in the Old Testament, and it's during Elijah's time when he was a prophet. So I think it was in Second Kings, and he had leprosy, and one of his servants heard that Elijah could do miracles and stuff like that. So go to Elijah; he'll heal you. And he was like, "Okay, I'll go to him." So in order to impress Elijah, he brought all his king's horses, all his king's men, all his riches, and he went to Elijah's door. And instead of Elijah opening the front door, his servant opened the front door, which was just so offensive. Like, because this is a man of stature. Like, the verse started off saying, like, this man's a guy of respect, high stature. Like, so this Elijah's servant answering the door was a slap in his face. then he was like, I have leprosy. Can you heal me? My servant said I could come, and I came. And Elijah just said, go on the lake and dip yourself 7 times. And he refused to do it. He was like, that lake's dirty. Why don't you just tell me to go to my lake in my hometown? So he was insisting on his own way. He would rather have leprosy than to do things God's way, essentially, right? So, and that's what I'm trying to say. You missed out on blessing. He eventually did it, but because his servant, yeah, he had somebody in his ear that was willing to tell him the truth and to be honest with him, which was a question I had for you guys. Like, yeah, here goes a question. If you really love me, then you will always agree with me. Do you agree with that? Like, if you really love me, then you will always agree with me. So,
my answers.
Right, like that's how people think, though. Don't we feel like that sometimes? Like, if you love me,
I'm because I was thinking about that earlier, and I was thinking, I wonder if this is the lesson to bring it up. But that is true. Like when we read about love, we look at all these characters, and these are characters that God has. Like God is patient, God is kind, God isn't. God is always like thinking about us. So we need to equate that God is love. But a lot of times we come up with our own versions of love. So then we come up with an idolized version of love. So instead of God is love, we turn love is God. Like we put our version of love as the highest form of love we can have. And of course coming from a person who's only been around on this earth for maybe who will only be here for like 60, 70, 80 years through the time span of all of history, can't possibly have a perfect form of love. But somehow in today's culture, we have figured out that if you love somebody, that means you tolerate everything that they do and let them do what they want. And we've actually been talking about that a little bit about not trying to force people in our own views. But I think there's a balance in which we can't let people do whatever they want because that can be harmful for them. And if we really love somebody, we don't want them to be harmed. Yeah. Like Paul has said before in another book that just because we can do something doesn't mean we should. Some things are just bad for us.
Right.
So yeah, that is a tough balance.
Yeah.
Because I think as far as judging people, we have to make sure that we are self-reflecting on ourselves first and foremost. But if we see a brother or a sister we care about go down a path that might be harmful for them, yeah, we don't judge them. We try to rectify and help them. Now, what's difficult from that, in my opinion, is figuring out what is actually right. Like, is this a righteousness that comes from God or the Bible, or is this a righteousness of something that we think is right? And that's really tough to dissect, really, because we only have our own experiences to base these judgments on. So sometimes we may think that we're helping somebody out of love, but really we're just trying to force them into our way of thinking. Or it could be that we really are keeping them from doing something that's sinful or full of temptation. And we should stop them because we love them. So it's difficult to know that discernment. I think that's why it's really important to always pray for discernment and wisdom, because we can't depend on our own versions of love.
Right.
Otherwise, we would just let people do whatever they want.
Right. And that's where, like, I really want to I don't know if we'll do one by one all the virtues. I really want to, because that would be a wow. Like, but rejoice is not an iniquity. It's the one you're talking about. Like, just you're celebrating an evil just to get somebody to like you. Like, you're letting people, you're not letting people sin because it's not your responsibility, but you're essentially just approving and saying that God approves of their sin as a Christian when you just idly let sin go by, which isn't love at all, right? And that goes back to, like, love doesn't insist on its own way. Like, all these virtues kind of tie in together. Like, you just tied it in, because when love insists on its own way, if I had a child that was probably homosexual or something like that, And I just to get them to like me or to keep the relationship, I would never kind of stand my ground on it or say anything about it. I just like, it's okay. Just like the Corinthians did with the son and his stepmother having sex and having an affair, while his father was alive and still married to his stepmother. So, and then they let him stay in the church. Both of them stay in the church and think that that's God's love. So they're rejoicing in iniquity, and we're not called to do that. But anyways, yeah, man, like there's just so much with this, man. I know you can see I'm all over the place, bro. Like I'm just trying.
I'm glad too, because I was thinking of talking about that, and I thought maybe now's not the place. So that was just good confirmation to bring it up.
But the church, the man and the stepmother.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, all of it ties in, man, like crazy. You know what else? What else I thought about though? When Peter was fishing and Jesus came and they didn't catch any fish all day, and Jesus told them to put back the net in the sea. And Peter could have been like, "Why?" Like, if he really insisted,
he might have.
Right? Yeah, but he still did it though. You know what I'm saying? Like, even though he did, which tied into my question. Like, tell me about a time where you didn't insist on your own way and you saw God, work. You saw God work. What did God do? Like, same thing happened with Peter. Like, literally, he could have said no. Like, he was tired. He was fatigued. He fished all day and didn't catch nothing. So I know he was tired. It was time to go home. Like, and Jesus talking about do it again. Like, why? Like, so like, and then man, it's just so much on him. But he was selfless. Like, selfless love is doing what you don't want to do, even when you don't want to do it. And that's good relationship advice and marriage advice. You know what I mean? Like, when you don't feel like having sex with your wife, if she wants sex, you give it to her. Just like we talked about with 1 Corinthians 7. When you don't feel like doing something, picking up your child, and they need to be picked up in the snow, and it's negative 12 degrees, you need to go. Like, you can't say no. Is that love to say no and just seek your own? Like, love does not insist on what it wants. It doesn't seek its own. Like, this ties in like crazy, man. Like, as Christians, and Paul, it's something that Paul had to write this to the church. Like, it'd be, you would think that believers would treat each other with so much love that he shouldn't have to be able to say this. This is crazy that he even has to write this stuff to them. But yeah, it's not even just for like them though. It's for everybody. But yeah, this chapter was crazy, man. Just that part right there. But yeah, I had so much to say with just agreeing and disagreeing though. Like, love allows others to disagree, and love listens. Like, how many people actually listens to people that they don't agree with, or do they just shut them off completely? Because they didn't vote for the same person they voted for president, or they're in a different political party, or they're Muslim or a terrorist, like, well, terrorist is not a good example, but but like, well, transgender, homosexual, like, you name it, like, they watch Disney Channel, or or they're black, like, because they're not doing things your way, or they're not in the way that you want them to be. You just refuse to have anything to do with them, man. That is so crazy. Like, because this chapter, just that part, love doesn't insist on its own way. Love doesn't seek its own. Like, it ties in with that, man, because God is no respecter of persons. If God's no respecter of person, what are we called to be? And that ties in with so many verses. Like, I had so many verses to pull out when it came to this. Like, 1 John, what's that chapter? I had it pulled up. Yeah, 1 John 4:20. Like, if a man say, I love God, and hate his brother, he is a liar. For he that loveth not his brother whom he hath seen, how can he love God whom he hath not seen? So those who don't love don't know God, like you talked about earlier, Justin. And then you treat everyone the way you would treat God. Like, so. Are somebody coming in there?
No, I had yeah, I needed something from the car, so I was unlocking it from the room.
Oh, she's with you?
Yeah, she's in a different cabin though.
Oh. Y'all volunteered together?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's what's up. Yeah, man, did you have anything else though?
Hold on. Let me check my notes.
Maya, you had anything?
I did like the part where I feel like we didn't. Oh, sorry, I kind of skipped over this because it was the first. We kind of jumped into the self-seeking one. I thought the does not dishonor others was an interesting one. And I guess one example is like that lady who came up to the pastor who was afraid they weren't biblical. And like that was out of no malice. She really thought like they were supposed to, which is adorable. But I think trying to correct someone is always tough because it can easily come from a place of anger or hate or just believing that you're right, self-righteousness. But I think when you try to correct someone from a place of love, it's much more genuine. Hopefully the other person feels it. I feel like a lot of people can tell where that is going to come from. And I feel like the not dishonoring others speaks strongly to that because you're not trying to bring them down a peg or knock them down. You're trying to love them and encourage them and build them up into a better version of them that they could be. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a big part about honoring their character. You're not trying to slander them. You're trying to honor who they are. You're trying to honor the creation that God has for them. So I just really like that part where that spoke to me like when you're reaching out to somebody, from what place are you reaching them? Are you reaching out from self-interest, or are you reaching out because like you want to honor them? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's the last thing I had.
Right. Last thing I want to say too, like, because we didn't really talk about too much, man, but like everybody has aspiration, everybody has hopes and dreams, everybody has wants and needs, right? Mm-hmm. And like one verse that's real powerful is like, the whole point of this whole thing, just like with love doesn't seek its own, doesn't demand its own way, is like if we're children of God, we're going to do things just like Jesus did. We're going to be a reflection of Christ to win as many souls to Christ as possible, just like Paul did, and just like Jesus did, just like all the saints did. In order to do that, man, we got to deny ourselves. So like, yeah, and just talking about love, like it's not loving to be bullying people, manipulating people to get them to do what you want, and then just demanding applause and just demanding everything, just demanding all the attention and just scheming to get things done your way. Like that's not godly at all. And so here goes some points I have for you guys. The more we die to self, the more others will see Christ. Because that's literally what Jesus did. Like one story I think about is when Jesus was in the Garden of Gethsemane. And when he was in the Garden of Gethsemane, he didn't want to go to the cross. He bled. It said that he was sweating blood, right? And he said, if this cup can be taken from me, take it, Lord. And he eventually said, not my will, but your will be done. Like, even though you don't want to do something, you're called to do it, right? And that, yeah, we should really talk about that question. Because this is my third time now. That question I asked, like, tell me about a time where you didn't insist on your own way and you saw God at work. Because here goes another quote for you guys too. The more we enable the more that we emulate the kind of ways and patterns that God uses, the better off we'll be. And that's so powerful because like if in order to see God at work, you got to do things his way. You can't do things your way, right? You got to literally deny everything that you want just to do things his way, because that's the only way his ways are different than our ways. There's a way that seems right to man, but his ways end in destruction. So just leaning on your thoughts and your own understanding and trying to make that the Bible, that is, you're not going to see God like that. And so many people do that. And that's insisting on your own way. Like all this stuff ties in like crazy, man. Like, and this is Philippians 2 talks about Jesus the whole time. Like we're called to be like Jesus. And that's literally what Philippians 2 says. But like in the verse 3, it says, let nothing be done from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourself. Imagine everybody in the world thought what everybody else wanted was more important than what I want. And we live to please one another, live to serve one another. And that's another thing. We're called to serve people. Everybody want to be praised. Everybody want to be the leader. Everybody want to be on the pedestal. but nobody wants to serve, right? So how is God gonna use you if you're not humble, if you're not willing to serve? Jesus even said it, the chief among you will be servants. The ones who are your leaders are servants, like they're gonna do the things that y'all don't want to do. And that's literally what Warren Buffett and successful people say. Successful people are people who do things unsuccessful people don't want to do. Right? That's why they succeed. So like, yeah, man, it's just so much, man. But yeah, man, go ahead.
Yeah, I think Jesus exemplified it the best. Like going back to the example you're saying, when he was sweating blood, that's actually a medical condition called hematohidrosis, in which you're under extreme levels of stress that the blood capillaries under your skin start to burst and fuse with your sweat glands. Like, and that's like only when you're under intense pressure, but he still went through it knowing what he was going to go through, which is astounding, because I think that's what we need to do to find that balance of love. Like Jesus followed through because this is what God needed of him, to show love to the entire world. Like, what do we need to do for God? Like, even if it's something that gives us stress, like we know he'll be there for us. So how can we exemplify love the same way that God exemplified love to other people?
Right. And that's the whole point, like as Christians, man, like just imagine if what was Jesus good in that moment in the Garden of Gethsemane? Like, was it good for him and better for him to die in a way that he died? Or was it better for him to just flee, just to avoid Calvary altogether? To avoid being crucified, to avoid a confrontation with the religious leaders, because they already had it with him. Like, like all he had to do is just refuse going to Jerusalem. Or he could have ascended back to heaven. Like, that was his best way. Like, but like, what was really the best way? That's a question I have for you guys. Like, good, better, best. Like, what is best should be our concern, not what do I want, what can I get out of it, and how does it benefit me? Which is mainly how we think. Like we always think of things selfishly when we don't think of things in a bigger picture. Like God's he does everything to edify the whole church, to serve others. Like literally, this is what we're talking about. Love doesn't seeketh its own. Like if you're not seeking your own, what are you going to be doing? Like you're going to be seeking the betterment of everybody. Like, like what's best for everybody. And that's literally what Jesus did. Like without him denying himself, without him not seeking what he wanted, we wouldn't have what we have today. Like we wouldn't be talking right now. We wouldn't be saved. Like, I don't know what would have happened, man. Like Jesus didn't die. Same thing with the Naaman guy that I mentioned. Like when if he never would have went back to Elijah and did what he said and listened to his servant and humbled himself, he would have never got healed. Right? Same thing with Moses. Moses would have never just denied what he wanted and didn't demand what he and he just went with what he demanded. He would have stayed in Egypt. He would have stayed where he was in the wilderness in Egypt with his wife and J-Rod. Who was his father-in-law? It's like J-Rod or something.
Jared? I can't remember.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, man, like it's just so many people like that, man. Paul too. Paul literally, we read it, man. Paul said, "I did everything to win people for Christ. Like I suffered. I don't receive money. Like I work, and you guys look down upon that. I work, like, and I serve. Like like Paul made a lot of sacrifices. He had discipline. He wasn't selfish. And like, how many Christians are selfish? And you think you're gonna reach people for Christ being selfish? Like, this is so powerful on so many levels, man. Like, that part of the chapter 5 like really hit home for me. And I know the rest of the ones are gonna hit home for me as well when I break it down and study it like that. But yeah,
that's a good one though.
Yeah, man. And I was gonna ask you guys too, like, what are some examples, man, of like love doesn't insist on its own way? Did y'all think of any? Because like I wrote down a lot, like 7.
I know there are when I was trying to think of some, I know there were moments in my life where it was like that. I just can't remember specific moments. But being in a relationship again, like I do find like I sometimes have to, like, for a guy's mind, I always try to find like a solution to problems. but that's not what she wants. Sometimes when she's talking about stuff that annoy her, she just wants to be heard, and I just need to comfort her.
Yeah.
So that's I like how Monet's agreeing with everything. Yeah, I think that's just how girls think, maybe, or how they're wired.
Yeah.
We're not fair because sometimes I want that too. I just never notice. But sometimes I've figured out like I can't insist on my way of comforting and just figure out what would comfort her. And I think that it can apply to like any of my relationships.
Okay.
Like that's a very general time because there are too many times that it could apply for to name them right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one example I thought about with Maya, she never mentioned it though, but like just you know how some people talk. So like yeah, some people talk and then you don't really listen to them. Like you act like you're listening, but you're not really listening, and you're only listening to comment. Like I don't ever do that with mine. Listen just to comment back, and it's just and people who do that they do that because I used to do it. I never done that with mine, but they comment back only to sound good, to sound motivational, like to be the star. Like they don't really like try to like listen to you though what you're trying to say, right? So that's one example of like love doesn't seek its own way. Another example is like. Another example is just going to, people who go out of the country to go to like Zimbabwe for like these, what are they called? The missionary? Is that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the missionary stuff. But they only go out of the country like to take cool pictures for social media, to go on a cool trip, to go out of country, say they went out of country, or to like just do religious acts, like to be seen, to do good works, to get to. Oh, that's so powerful. That's another thing. Like people just doing good works to get to heaven. So insisting on your own way, thinking that your way will get you to the promised land instead of taking Jesus's way. But anyways, oh, people, I already used that example. People only singing it on worship teams and churches to be seen, to be on a platform. Some preachers only preach to be on a platform, to be able to yell at people and stuff like that. But here goes one that really hit home for me too. Yeah, this one's how many people only want to preach for money, right? So that like their whole aim and their whole goal is to get money for preaching, to be famous. They only preach about Christ to like, elevate themselves. And yeah, man. So there's so many examples. Like, but yeah, that goes back to intentions and motives. Like everything in the Bible always comes back to intentions and motives. Like, what's the reasoning behind what you do? How is your heart? And that's literally everything Jesus talked about. I feel like every message Jesus ever preached is always comes back to the heart. Like when I really study it. Like, where's your heart? Like, what are your intentions behind doing something? Because if it isn't for the right reason, you're doing it for nothing. That's literally what Paul's talking about all in 1 Corinthians 13. And and when you think about the Corinthian church, they thought that just them coming to church was enough, even though they ate all the feast and they had communion. They thought they were doing God a service, and Paul was like, "Man, y'all are doing it for nothing. Like you literally went here for nothing." And that's Paul's whole point. Like you don't care, you don't love your neighbor. The people who need love the most, you guys cast away just because they can't speak in tongues. Just because they can't prophesy, just because they don't perform no miracles, right? And he said you should treat the people who are less significant, who are unattractive, who can't do things better, if anything. So yeah, man, like this chapter was crazy, man, just when it came to that. But yeah, I got a lot more examples. Y'all want some more, but yeah, did y'all have anything else though?
I feel like for insisting on my ways, I've learned that sometimes I avoid certain topics as well. Like I don't talk about Democrat versus Republican or something like that. It's not because I'm like scared of it, but it's because I know it will upset somebody else, and I know it might make them stumble or lead into an argument. And I don't know, like I feel like it's just not productive use of time. That's fair.
Yeah. Yeah, man, my notes, man. I got way too many, man. I got like 12 tabs open.
Yeah, that's about right.
I'm trying to navigate through these things, but I mean, I think I said everything I want to say, man. Because I'll just be repeating myself at this point. Like I didn't talk about being a servant that much though. Like I don't remember. Do you remember a part in First Corinthians where Paul basically said we're slaves of Christ, servants of Christ?
Yeah. Shoot, when was that? Yeah, I do. It's where we've been given freedom, but we've chosen to become slaves to Christ. Like that's what we use our freedom for.
Oh my gosh, see, man, yeah. Now I'm ready. Now I'm ready. Now I got this. Okay, yeah. So everybody, one of the things I was gonna say is it's your right, it's your liberty, your freedom, right? So because Christ died for us, like Paul said in First Corinthians, we're free to live however we want. So going to the idol temple, you want to go to the idol temple, go ahead. But you gotta know this about idols too. You gotta know how that affects other believers. So if you love your neighbor, you really wouldn't do it. But if it's your liberty, it has no power over you, right? You're a child of God, right? So, but yeah, man, like don't. Here's the biggest thing though. Like Paul's whole point with the Corinthians is, don't mock God, don't lie and say you love God and you're a child of God, and He's your first priority. If you don't obey His word, like so, some people think that you can live any type of way you want, so you insist on your own way, and you think that you're saved. Like Paul's like, no, that's not true. So he used that literally with just this part right here, just that one phrase, but it's talking about it ties in with all the virtues, though, right? And then, yeah, man, I could keep on elaborating on that, but I'm not. I don't have to do that with you guys. And then something else too is servants. Like servants don't get what they want. They don't get their way. Slaves. They're somebody else's authority over them. As a child of God, who's our authority? You know what I mean? Like our authority tells us how to act, how to live, where to go, how to behave, how to think. That's literally what God does for us. And if He ain't doing that for you, like who are you? Like, because you're not a child of God. Like, like so many people got the Christian, especially in today's time here. Just the comments I get on social media, man, you can tell like people's heart, like where their true intentions are, like especially in today's time period. Like there's just they don't know the word like that, but they think they do, but they really don't. You know what I mean? So yeah, man. Like literally, the way Jesus lived, He lived like a slave. The way Paul lived, he lived like a slave. Elijah, all of them. Like, and we're called to do the same thing. Like, you don't get your way. Whatever God wants for you, that's your path that you walk. That's what you choose to do. Because if you love Him, that's what you do, right? So Jesus didn't have to go to the cross; He just chose to do it, right? So, yeah. But yeah, man, I think I'm good, man. Unless you had other stuff, you got other stuff, I'm ready to go. It probably helped me find and navigate through here.
Let me see. I think that's all I had. Yeah, just to piggyback on what you said, like something that made me think about it was, like because God gave us our freedom, like because He sacrificed Jesus's life for, our lives, like that means our lives aren't even our own. Like our time is not our own. Like that suddenly puts into perspective, what are we going to use with the time that's not our own? We give it back to God. Like if anything, nothing we have is really ours. It comes from circumstance, really, or what God decides to allow us to have. But like the thing that we do have is like our time, but it's not really our time because we don't know how long we have it. So when we have that free will, like the best thing that we can give to God is our time, our commitment, and our love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like when it comes to this chapter, you think we're done with it, or do you want to go one by one and just not one by one, do probably 2 virtues a week. So like next week we'll probably do love is patient and kind, and we just go one by one like that, or you want to finish verse 5 and do like love doesn't behave itself unseemly and love is not easily provoked? I think we can do 3. Think of no evil. Like just do all of verse 5 and finish it.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Because I really I want to do every single one just so when I come back to this chapter, I have even more stuff. Or when I go to any chapter in the Bible, I have stuff to pull from. It's just to keep on building upon all of our knowledge and stuff, especially for preaching purposes and stuff. But then also, I kind of want to. I just want to learn, man. I want to one thing. One thing I really want to know about is there's one virtue I don't understand in the King James version. I'm trying to read it. Like every time I read it, it doesn't make sense. I don't know. Maybe they all make sense now. Maybe when I first read it, it didn't. But... All right, cool. I'm gonna turn off the recording unless somebody else got something to say.
All right. So next week, what do we want to do?
Let's do verse 5. Like just finish it.
Rest of verse 5. Okay.
Yeah. So let's.
So, what's your version say, by the way?
Does not behave itself unseemly. Is not easy. Well, I'll read all of it. Verse 5: does not behave itself unseemly. Seeketh not her own. Is not easily provoked. Thinketh no evil.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good with me.
Okay. And we already did seeketh not her own, so we can always tie in stuff we did before.
Yeah. Sounds good.
How was it studying this? Like, did you even have to study it like that? Or
study like what?
Like just studying Seeketh Not Her Own. Like, did you have to study a lot, or do you feel like you were done studying and you didn't need to do no more studying like me? Or
I studied a little, but then I started coming up with stuff on my own. So then, yeah, I stopped studying, but not because like I needed to stop studying. I felt like I stopped studying because like I just wanted to start using my own stuff.
Okay. Yeah. How you think that the lesson went?
The lesson was good. I liked it. I wish I could think of, for your question though.
Oh yeah.
It was a good question. I just wish I could come up with more specifics because I know in my life I thought a lot about, like, hindsight's 2020. And when something happens that I don't expect, I always think of what I was trying to do and what God let happen. And I know I had like a lot of instances of that. I just could not think of specifics for whatever reason. I don't know. I could not think of them for my life.
Did you have one, Maya, with that question? Tell me about a time in your life where you didn't insist on your own way and saw God at work.
As far as saw, have to when around the time you came into my life, but I have examples of not insisting on my own way, but with the wrong person, and it just being disastrous for myself.
Oh no.
Okay. Yeah.
I guess you kind of need stuff like that, though.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I will say, since the recording's off, but it's interesting because, like, not to embarrass Yao or anything, but like we get pretty touchy-feely, and we are trying to like hold back because it's hard to like keep those temptations at bay. So we've been praying to God, like, to help us be pure, and then both of us got sick this week. Like in the 1 week that we were like spending time together, we got sick and we just didn't feel like being intimate. We like still hung out and like still had fun, but like we were too sick to do anything. And I made the suggestion that maybe this was God's answer, that he would just make us sick. Like it wasn't COVID or anything, but it was like we still felt like crap.
I ain't gonna lie, Justin. I haven't turned off the recording yet. I'll just make sure you
You lied to me. Oh my gosh.
I did not hear the thing said the thing is now done or whatever.
Oh yeah.
I'll delete that part though. I can edit it out, Justin. I'll edit it out.
Yeah, I know. That's funny.
Just so y'all don't get mad at you. I feel
Or
like
you can use it. I know y'all doesn't go on YouTube.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say running track, man. For me, like I told you guys before, like I had to run track. I was gonna run track my senior year of high school when I first got saved. Cause I got saved Saturday, September 4th, 2010. So that was the beginning of my senior year. I graduated in 2011 in March. Well, in June. And so, yeah, man, God told me to run track again. I just felt like I just wanted to preach and stuff. But yeah, he said he wanted me to run track just to get closer to him. And then he told me to do track, in college. My freshman year, I already told myself every day, freshman year, like I'm done because I hate running. It was like being a slave, man. It was awful. And yeah, and I told everybody on track team I wasn't running track again. I'm done. And then God, I still remember, man. I gotta tell you guys sometime. I told Maya, but long story short, I'm not gonna tell it. I just went to a room and I was put in first I was put in a situation where I had to make a deal with the devil, Coach Rachel, and say that I was gonna run track again. So I shook his hand. So it was literally a situation I couldn't get out of. And like, yeah, man. And then God had the nerve to tell me what's up. Like when I went to a separate area to pray, but I wasn't even trying to pray. I just got on my knees because I was done. Like I don't know if you ever been in a situation in life where you couldn't get out of something, and all you could do is pray. Like literally, you have no power to do anything. Like it's just all the weight of the world is more than on you. Like it's just pressing you down to where you can't do nothing.
There's a good quote. What is that quote? I didn't know God was all I needed until He was all I had.
Right.
Sometimes you have to be put in those situations to realize that God's all you need.
Right. And so that's where I saw God work the most, like in track. Like when I didn't want to do it. That second year I did it, and it was actually a breeze compared to my first year, man. My first year was hell. So yeah. But yeah, man, that's the best. I mean, of course, there's other times where I didn't insist on my own way and I did exactly what God wanted me to do, but that was the main one. That was the hardest and set the tone for everything. That's why God wanted me to do it, because He knew that it would benefit me in life and everything. That's what He told me. So yeah, man. And then I don't think I had another question really. I had other questions, but if you guys want me to ask them, I will. But you feel like you guys answered that one?
I'm fine with anything.
Okay. I guess that's it. I mean, I think my other questions are more rhetorical. Yeah, they're all rhetorical. But yeah, man, that's all I have. I'm sorry I didn't tell you to record it. I told you to record and stuff. And
Oh, no, you're good. That's funny.
It's just we kept on talking, so I left it on just in case.
Yeah.
All right, I'll turn it off. But so, are there kids there now?